everyone, I'm Stephanie, and welcome back to So Many Things. Today we're going to be working on a leggings pattern. If you've watched previous videos, you've seen me make them in a behind the brand video for my daughters for Christmas. Today I'm going to walk you through the steps to make them yourself. The pattern we will be using today is the Bonnie leggings from Made for Mermaids. I'll have the link below in the description so that the pattern is easy to find. You'll want to print off the pattern and give it a read through. It is a printable PDF, so you will have to piece together the pattern itself. So either gluing or taping it together and then cutting it out on the designated lines. So if you've got the right software, you can choose which layer you want to print off. If you don't, then just there is a table on it that'll tell you what dashed line to follow for what size. Once you have it all cut out and ready to go, then it's time to choose your fabrics. Now my daughter has a very small waist, so I try and use a different fabric on the waist that's just a little bit tighter and holds its tension a little bit better. I find that the fabric that I've ordered off Spoonflower, as much as it is pretty, it does loosen throughout the day quite a bit, and she's losing her pants. So something with a little bit more stretch for her is better. I also reduce the size on there for her so that it kind of keeps her in a little bit snugger. So that's something that you'll have to play with your child or yourself, depending on who you're making them for, as some of those little variations make all the difference in the fit of your final product. All right, so I've got my pattern piece ready to go. And I've chosen her favorite Harry Potter fabric from my stash. So what we're going to want to do is once you get it laid out, you're going to want to have two mirror images. So the easiest way to do this is just to have it out and fold it in half. Now either right sides together, wrong sides together. At this point, it doesn't really matter. All right, so I've got my fabric here all laid out. It is wrong sides together, but that doesn't really matter at this point as we need two mirror images. My fabric, before I lay this out, my fabric is what we consider a directional fabric. So though there is a pattern to the pictures on the fabric. So I want to make sure that that pattern is running from like the top of the leg down to the bottom of the leg and is not upside down. So I've made sure that the top of my leggings here at the waist is at the top of the pictures and that they're running down my leg. So I'm just going to place this down here nicely so that my pattern fits evenly on both sides, or that I have a little bit of salvage on each side. I'm just going to use my rotary cutter and cut it out. So here are my two leg pieces. And now I'm going to cut out my waistband piece. So you'll notice when you cut out your pattern that there will be a chart in the center of your leggings that'll tell you what size to cut your waist. For these ones, I'll be cutting a size 6 waist. So depending on what you want, if you want the thin band or if you want the yoga band, my children tend to like the yoga band. So I'm going to do an 8 by 18 rectangle for my waist. And that's it. We have all our pieces cut. So now let's get assembling. Our first step is to make what they call a memory crease for our hem along our bottom. Now I always have a very, very hard time creasing knits. So I cheat a little bit because my lines get all wonky. So I know that my fold over has to be a 1/2 inch. So I'm actually going to draw a line 1 inch above the bottom of my raw edge. So again, with my dressmaker's chalk, I'm just going to draw a line right there. So that I know when I take it over to the iron that I'm just going to have to fold it up to my line. And I know that my fold is exactly 1/2 inch every time. So you will notice that the crease is there, but it doesn't stay folded over like our quilting cottons do. So you're going to want to fold it over and pin it down with a few wonder clips. And we're going to have to sew this down. So we're going to use what we call a zigzag stitch or a stretch stitch and edge stitch it. So as close to this edge as you can so that it looks like a nice professional hem. I'm hoping you can see this. So it looks like a miniature zigzag stitch. That is your stretch stitch. So you can pull this as much as you want and you're not going to hear the thread crack. Now if you don't have a serger, go ahead and use that stitch for the remainder of your project. If you do have a serger, feel free to use that as well. The rest of this pattern is very straightforward. We're just going to sew the pieces together. So I always start with my waistband, match it right sides together, and I just use a few wonder clips and I clip it together. We'll run this through the serger and then this piece will be done. You can trim off your excess thread as this will get sewn into the next seam so you don't have to worry about it fraying. So you can set this piece aside and now we're going to work on the main legs. So these we're going to fold so that they are right sides together, each individual leg at a time. So we're going to do the inseam first. So you're going to match at the crotch and then you're going to match down at the ankle. These are the two most important parts because these are the two parts where you want them to line up. Obviously you don't want your ankle seam to be off, and if your crotch seam is off you might be a little crooked. So I always match them up first and then I can kind of sort of tweak in between to make sure that everything lines up. So I'll do this one quickly and then we'll do a close-up on the next one so you can see exactly what I've done. There we go. First pant leg done. Let's zoom in a little and see how I did that leg. All right, so like I said, I started at the bottom and I matched my hem. Then I'll usually pin up 1 or 2 pins. Just so that I know my alignment is right. Then I'll move to the crotch piece and I will line up that seam. Don't worry about the butt and all this part. Just make sure that the inseam lines up for now. We'll worry about the rest after. So at this point you can tweak a little bit in the middle. There we go. So I'm going to start over here at my ankle seam just because I know that I don't want that moving. If there's a slight bit of play over here in the gusset, not a big deal. But you will notice if your child's hem is off. So let's start with that first in our machine. Once we've got both inseams done, you're going to want to take one leg and turn it inside out. And then we're going to take it and we're going to insert it into the other pant leg. This this will give us right sides together on our pant so that we can sew this final seam. So this one I start matching at the crotch, and I will lay my seam allowances opposite ways, just so that that seam is not excessively bulky. And then I will work my way around to the top, or to the waist. If you don't already have some of these amazing wonder clips, I will have them down in the description below through an Amazon link that you can pick some up. They are the best option for working with a knit fabric. If you use a standard needle, it'll actually pierce through the stitching of the fabric as opposed to sliding between the stitching of the fabric, and will end up causing a run in your leggings, or a hole. So these are actually the best to work with. Once you have this pinned, go ahead and run it through your serger all the way around. So it gets a little tricky once you round this second corner. So getting into the first corner is fine. Coming out of the corner sometimes gets a little bit tricky when you're working on a serger. So just take your time, do a few stitches at a time, make sure that you're not cutting too much off, and make sure that you're not forgetting to sew a spot by accidentally allowing your fabric to slide too much. So at this point your legs of your leggings are done. We just have to attach the waistband. So you'll notice that there's a side that's longer than the other. That's the back. And this is the front. So what we're going to want to do right now is what we call mark our quarters. So we have our front and our back seam already marked with our seams, but there is no side seams on these. So what we're going to want to do is make sure that our front and our back seams are very nicely aligned, and then take a needle or a wonder clip and just mark that side. This will come in handy when you go to attach your waistband, so that there's even distribution of that waistband all the way around the pant. So we're just going to set those aside, and then we're going to take our waistband. So we've already sewn it together. It's a nice little tube. What we're going to want to do is fold it in half so that the wrong sides are touching. Sometimes this takes a minute or two because it just doesn't want to sit right, or it's sitting crooked. So I tend to wonder clip it as I straighten out a section. I'll clip it so that I know that it won't slide on me, and I can keep working my way around the waistband. All right, so I've got it all lined up, so it's even all the way around. To mark our quarters on this one, what you're going to want to do is fold it in half so that one of your side seams is actually the seam that you stitched. Its opposite side will obviously be the halfway mark. Once you have the halfway mark, hi Layla. Once you have the halfway mark marked, you can line it up with your seam to get your quarters. So now that we have our quarters matched on both our pant piece and our waistband, we can get them put together. So what you're going to want to do is take your waistband and put it over top of your pants. The only seam that we have here in our waistband will be the back of the pant. So you're going to want to find the back of your pant and match that seam up with that seam on your waistband. What I then do is match up my quarters. So I will go around ignoring every other clip, except for my quarter seams. And those will be the ones that I match first, because they're the most important. So once you've got your quarters matched up, then you can match up your, what I call my in-betweens. So just give your waistband a little stretch until it matches even with the rest of your pant. And then give it a little clip. It's okay if it puckers a little bit because you're going to want to stretch it slightly as you sew, just to keep the puckers out of the way, and that it'll end up laying flat once you're done. At this point, I also take a little piece of ribbon. I have my old Jeans Baby ribbon. I just take a small piece just to mark the back. I don't know what it is with my children, but they always seem to wear their pants backwards. So I just put that over top of my back seam. Once we have all the pieces set and in order, then we're ready to serge the waistband on. If you don't have a serger, like I said before, go ahead and use the stretch stitch on your standard machine, and that will be perfect. The bonus to using a knit fabric is that it won't fray. So even though you have exposed seams, you don't have to worry about any of it fraying in the wash or in the future. I do try and start with my back seam. It is the bulkiest and usually the hardest for your serger or your sewing machine to get through. So if you start with that one first, then you know the hard part is done. Like I said before, just give it a gentle tug to make sure that all your fabric is laying flat, but you're not overstretching the fabric. So for this last seam, you're going to want to leave quite a tail, as you're going to have to tuck it into your finished seam. So here we're going to do the little tuck, so you're going to pull it straight, and then I just use a large needle. Now making sure that all these needles are ballpoint. I just tuck it back into my seam. I go through that big bulky seam because I know that there's a lot of fabric and material and weight there, so it'll hold it in place. And then you can trim off the excess. And with that, your leggings are now done. As always, please like, subscribe, and push that bell button for notifications on new videos. If you've liked the content I share here, please join me on Facebook to find more great content. Thanks for sewing with me.